You're watching UATV News. My name is Ina Kosinska. Good evening. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky held a meeting with management of big international companies. Those are foreign investors who make a significant contribution to the economy of our country, as well as Ukrainian companies that have built an international business. The head of state thanked entrepreneurs for new jobs and investments, as well as for their work to improve business climate. For instance, members of the American Chamber of Commerce alone have invested more than $50 billion in Ukraine and have created more than 400,000 jobs.
90% of business representatives gave an optimistic forecast of the financial condition of their companies at the end of the 2021. 37% increased investments in Ukraine compared to the previous year. Almost 40% plan to expand their investment portfolio in the next year. This is trust at its highest level. People often like to talk about the investment climate in Ukraine. I think it varies, but to my mind, if there are any changes in the climate and there are some challenges, you are a businessman, you are powerful, not oligarchs, but powerful businesses act as an umbrella which protects Ukraine.
Turkey is ready to act as a mediator between Ukraine and Russia. This was stated by the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan. According to him, Ankara has established relations with both Moscow and Kyiv and is only in favor of a positive solution to disputed issues. Erdoğan clarified that he is ready to discuss this issue in more detail. Kyiv responded to Ankara's proposal. Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba welcomed any efforts of partners on the way of peace negotiations. Nevertheless, there's also a red line that Kyiv will not surpass, Kuleba noted.
The only rule that we have in Ukraine is the following. There must be no agreements on Ukraine taken or made without Ukraine. This is the red line. Everything else is welcome. We are ready to talk and to discuss any initiatives aimed at, as I said, putting an end to this conflict.
Some 7,000 employees of the Russian special services are trying to destabilize the situation in Ukraine. This was announced by head of the Department of Cybersecurity of the Security Service of Ukraine, Diia. According to him, 50 networks of anti-Ukrainian internet agitators have been blocked since the beginning of the year. Besides, the work of more than 20 bot farms with a capacity of 150,000 accounts was stopped as well.
Those are 150,000 people who comment on something, repost, write, show a certain assessment by the society to certain events. There was such an unprecedented operation to expose the Armageddon hacker group, which was a direct subordinate of the Federal Security Service of the Russian Federation and operated from the territory of Crimea. Diia, head of the Cybersecurity Department of the Security Service of Ukraine.
The Economic Security Bureau started working in Ukraine. This is an executive body that will not have law enforcement functions. At present, detectives of the Bureau accept cases of economic crimes from the Security Service, the National Police, the State Bureau of Investigation and the previously liquidated Tax Police. The staff of the department has already been completed by 30%. Employees, detectives and analysts undergo special tests before starting work. The plans of the Bureau's management for the next year include opening of branches in the regions.
They took the criminal proceeding. The detective is studying the material and is already connecting the analyst in order to study the grounds for entering data into the unified register of pre-trial investigations. That is what has been worked out, and so that the criminal proceedings move in the right direction. First of all, the emphasis is on overcoming on investigative actions on illegal deals that exist in the economy.
This plenary week, the Parliament of Ukraine plans to pass the draft budget for the next year. The MPs will study the document this Thursday. Economic and social bills are on the agenda as well. One of the initiatives is to balance revenues to the state budget. According to the relevant bill, some areas of business, in particular in agriculture, should be exempt from tax. Another document proposes to abolish the value-added tax on the sale of housing in the secondary market. The sale of agricultural land will be taxed at a rate of 0%, but taxation for enterprises that pollute the atmosphere, on the contrary, will increase.
Today is the last day of November. If this bill is passed, if the relevant resolution is introduced, if it is signed, considering all this, the bill will come into force 2 weeks before the new year and before the start of new tax rules. The law has two purposes: to eliminate illegal tax benefits that have been provided for decades to large businesses and to combat the shadow business, which does not pay taxes to the state budget. As for the small and medium businesses, if they are legal, they will not suffer.
Some 10,500 new cases of COVID-19 were registered in Ukraine over the past 24 hours. Among those sick are 846 children, 560 people died of complications. The capital is the anti-leader in the number of new cases. More than 600,000 people became infected in Kyiv since the beginning of the pandemic. This is almost 2 times more than in the other regions. Starting Monday, December 6, new adaptive quarantine rules will come into force in the country. Minister of Health of Ukraine, Viktor Leshko, told about this at the briefing. The largest number of changes are related to yellow level of epidemiological danger rules. In particular, businesses in the yellow zone will be obliged to check documents on vaccination or negative test. Those who have not gotten at least one jab, do not have a negative test or a certificate of recovery, will not be able to enter public places.
Tightening of the rules will primarily affect unvaccinated citizens. The government is forced to enforce quarantine for unimmunized citizens because the coronavirus is not giving up. Europe sets a new continental record for the COVID-19 sickness rate, 368,000 people on average per day. We must take measures to save the lives of citizens who have not yet come to the vaccination points to protect their own lives.
Services, creative economy and transportation. Those spheres suffer from the coronavirus pandemic the most. According to the first Vice Prime Minister, Minister of Economy of Ukraine, Yulia Sviridenko, it goes about 6,000 enterprises. Vaccinated Ukrainians can help them during this period, as since December 19, they will be able to get a payment of 1,000 hryvnias through the Diia portal, that is some $35, and spend them to help those spheres. It is planned that this money can be spent on a certain list of services: buy railway or air tickets for domestic flights, purchase a subscription to a gym or fitness club, visit a cinema, theater, museum or an exhibition center. The list will be expanded, thus the implementation of this program will not only stimulate Ukrainians to vaccinate, but will also provide support to the sectors of the economy most affected by coronavirus restrictions. And it will also help fill the state budget. A few clicks in a device instead of hourly lines and a bunch of requests on paper certificates. The developers of the Diia application presented 7 new services related to the social sphere. Our correspondent will tell you more.
Get a COVID pass or a child's birth certificate, apply for an unemployment grant, register an individual business, or order a car number plate. Those many services and otherwise are now available for Ukrainians to receive in a pair of clicks without leaving home, thanks to Diia portal and its application. More than 11 million citizens are already using the online platform for services, but the Ministry of Digital Transformation is not about to stop. The agency has set a goal to make Ukraine the most comfortable state in the world.
Our vision of the most convenient state in the world is crystallized through certain goals. The first goal is 100% public services digital. We want to digitize all available services by 2024, make them online and introduce the principle: if services do not exist online, they cannot exist offline.
7 more options have recently been added to the Diia list. Instead of hours spent in lines and dozens of papers to recalculate one's pension, one needs only about half an hour to do this via smartphone.
In
order to calculate or recalculate a pension, one will need to fill out a survey, upload the necessary documents and apply. The liberalization of this process is particularly important in a pandemic to help seniors to prevent the additional risk of infection while staying in lines. Therefore, we know for sure this will save lives.
In addition to pension-related services, one can also apply for a subsidy on the portal in a few clicks. No other country in the world has yet repeated the success of the Ukrainian Diia.
Ukraine is the first country in the world that launched digital passports and legally equated them to ordinary paper documents. And business registration in Ukraine has one of the fastest procedures in the world. That is why Ukraine is becoming a digital transformation model for many other European countries.
By the end of the year, another 7 new products will appear in the Diia platform. These are the Face ID notifications on the course of the legal process and credit history. It will also be possible to submit an annual declaration for private entrepreneurs, file for a criminal record check, or register one's place of residency. More revolutionary updates of the Diia portal will be presented at the Diia Summit in February 2022. Reported by Nick Starkov, Valeria Nikipelova, UATV News.
The first garbage catcher in Ukraine was introduced in Kharkiv on the Udi River. The floating structure was named Trash Killer. Our correspondent saw how the floating cleaner works.
Here you see plastic in the Udi River. It's a complete nightmare. I don't know how to comment on this. That is how we are destroying our nature.
This video was shot by Artem Prihodko in May. An engineer by profession and an eco-activist in heart, he decided to fight with the rubbish heaps, and 2 weeks later the man organized the first waste collection campaign.
We worked to get 110 tons of garbage for 18 weekends in a row. Almost all the garbage was sent for recycling, some parts to the landfills, and some wooden parts were taken by locals for stoves. Thereby we saved the forest.
About 100 people gathered on weekends and handpicked the trash. Artist Irina Brezhna took part in the campaign 3 times. An example of river volunteer solidarity inspired her to hold the same action among Kharkiv artists, as well as to create a new painting.
Artists stand for improving ecological situation in our country, for showing the beauty of nature. We planted trees here with artists, we painted towards the nature, and I created the picture Clean Udi River. I was sitting in this place and behind me there was a heap of garbage. On the other bank the guys were pulling garbage out of the river.
Locals were the most delighted with the eco-activists. Victor lives near the river and says that for years he observed the giant garbage islands.
It's scary, people are complaining. There wasn't a lot of rubbish here, but there were loads of trash, it was awful.
When the river was cleaned, the activists came up with the idea to create a trash catcher in order to clean the reservoir without people's help. Architect Andriy Raf developed a sketch of the structure. Local entrepreneurs and even a plant got involved and helped to produce it.
We have a pontoon diagonal line across the river. It directs all the floating debris into the tank. That is a structure which amasses the garbage, which is then taken away by specialized vehicles. Thus, people will not have to pick up this debris waist deep in the water, in garbage that is dangerous to one's health.
The heart of the structure is a 6 cubic meter waste bin. When it is full of waste, it will be easily lifted by utility workers who will serve the dam, Andriy says. Garbage from the basket can be taken for recycling, the rest to the landfill.
It is underwater now. In the water there is a garbage collection container which will be serviced. At the time of its lifting by a manipulator with the help of any equipment with a crane, the service lock will be closed so that the garbage that has accumulated here does not float further.
In spring, Artem Prihodko's team will transport the trash killer to another place on Udi and will start cleaning the river in the place where it falls into the Siversky Donets River. Reported by Nick Starkov and Natalia Belokudra, UATV News.
No light and electricity. Residents of 179 towns in 8 regions of Ukraine suffer from strong gusts of the wind. Harsh weather covered Chernihiv, Donetsk, Kyiv, Poltava, Zhytomyr, Sumy and Luhansk regions. In Kharkiv and Dnipro regions, utility workers are taking away the fallen trees, but weather is going on. Forecasters predict wind gusts up to 20 meters per second in western and northern regions and in Kyiv city. The first level of danger was declared. Safety of civilians, transportation of people and cargo. Those are the main tasks performed by the Ukrainian peacekeepers in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. They're not afraid of bad roads and climate, and they save and protect not only people. Our special correspondent Alexander Machov, who is now in Africa, will tell you more.
Мы находимся на базе украинских миротворцев в городе Гома, Демократической Республики Конго.
We are at the base of the Ukrainian peacekeepers in the city of Goma, Democratic Republic of the Congo. 250 people live here. They have sleeping places, there are separate houses, there is a dining room, a sauna and a gym. There is a place where they can spend their leisure time. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, fighting has been going on for many years. Several military groups are fighting for control over mining sites, including gold and cobalt, and government troops are fighting with them. The UN peacekeeping mission ensures safety of civilians here, many of whom are beyond the poverty line because of such a long war. The roads are very bad in this republic, so the quickest way to get somewhere is by air. Ukrainian peacekeepers are using the Mi-8 helicopters. And the main task of the Ukrainian peacekeepers is the transportation of goods, transportation of people, as well as implementation of mission tasks for patrolling or reconnaissance. Over the past 3 months, Ukrainian peacekeepers have conducted more than 1,000 missions to various points in the Democratic Republic, and they promise to take us with them on one of those flights. We will definitely show and tell you how this happens.
Это Жора, он друг украинских миротворцев, живет с ними вместе на базе.
And this is Zhora. He is a friend of the Ukrainian peacekeepers. He lives with them at the base. Our peacekeepers saved Zhora because locals wanted to eat him. You know, they eat monkeys. And the Ukrainian peacekeepers bought Zhora for $5 and thus saved his life. Now he lives here at this base and eats from this canteen. Reported by Alexander Makhov, Alexander Khlinin and Nick Starkov, specially for UATV News from the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
That's all for this hour. More updates on our official website, YouTube, Twitter and Facebook pages. Thank you for staying with UATV channel. Goodbye.